If you've been a listener of the Reproductive Rebel podcast, you know that I've dived headfirst into this conversation around emotions and the body. We've had past episodes about how emotions show up in the pelvis and other aspects of our life. In this week's episode, I am so privileged to have Taylor Sappington of Tailored Wellbeing join me on the show as we have a conversation about how getting really honest with ourselves and with our emotional body is a really important part of our health. Just to let you all know, the conversation gets into some real vulnerable and deep places, and I hope that you can join us for this journey. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an Eastern medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering period solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. I am so excited to be joined by Taylor Sappington of Tailored Wellbeing today. Welcome, Taylor.
It's the dynamic duo. We're back.
We're back. But we have so much cool stuff to say. So I'm so excited that you are joining me today to have a conversation that I have on a regular basis with clients. And I think it's a really important one to shine some light upon.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I have a space I can go to after a day of calls and I can be like, hey, I've come upon this realization because I'm seeing a pattern in the people that I have the privilege of connecting with and supporting. Are you seeing the same pattern? It's so nice to be met with somebody who understands the language that I'm speaking, but we're both speaking. And it's so nice to be met with a safe space where I can actually unpack my authentic and raw thoughts around things that I am witnessing in women in particular. And these are topics of conversation, one of which we're going to talk about here, that many people aren't addressing. And I believe we're not addressing them collectively because there's shame and guilt and fear around having transparent conversations around the topic that we're getting ready to dive in.
Absolutely. Ooh, that was a great lead-in. I have talked on past podcasts. So if you have listened to the Reproductive Rebel podcast, I have touched upon this. Emotions have massive amounts of power in our system in terms of how they show up physically, how our bodies present and move through the world as a result of emotions we either allow out into the world or we bottle and they mastitize. So this isn't a unique theme for this show, but I think that this is the kind of, maybe some of you will think this is a tough love level conversation, but I think that this is why it's Reproductive Rebel, right? We're rebelling against a narrative in our culture that everything has to be prim, proper, hunky-dory. We're not allowed to be emotional beings out in the world. There's jokes made about women crying and being emotional and all of these things, but having emotions is human. And not acknowledging those emotions makes us sick.
It's inhumane. It's inhumane to subject yourself to situations where you have an emotional response. And instead of allowing the emotional response to transmute and alchemize, you stuff it. And here's the thing. Most of us were raised in a home where emotions weren't safe to express. So by no means is this pointing the finger and saying, you bad, or even parents bad, because there's a story with your mom and dad. And then there's a story with your grandparents. And there's
Mhm,
this lineage, historical, ancestral aspect to this conversation that oftentimes gets lost
mm,
in the feeling blamed and shamed with the lack of expression of emotions. And I just want you to consider what it would feel like as a parent in current day to have a child who you cut off the expression of their emotion mid expression.
mhm.
It's like watching a flower wilt and die.
Oh
And
my
yet
gosh, yeah.
we do that to ourselves routinely. The anger, the rage, the frustration, the sadness, the dissatisfaction. We've created sterility in our environments, in our internal environment. Man, that's another segue, right? The sterility that we see in the reproductive realm, but we've created sterility in the way that we express emotions and the way that we express, obviously, physical health in the sense that there's lack thereof given the sterility that's present, but it's an inhumane thing to do to
Mhm,
yourself.
mhm. Absolutely. And so because we create these ideas that it's not okay to
Mhm,
be an emotional being,
mhm,
we suppress bigger themes and narratives, like things that are not feeling like they're in right relationship in our life. This could be relationships. This could be jobs. This could be maybe you're committing yourself or overextending yourself in a situation and it just doesn't feel good. And you're driving to whatever PTA meeting or board meeting or whatever it is that you're participating in and you're cursing it out the entire way because you're feeling resentment
mhm,
for doing that thing, whatever it is.
mhm,
But it's being generated by the fact that we haven't been taught that it's okay to have boundaries. It isn't okay to put ourselves first.
mhm,
And this is a really big theme that I see with clients around fertility. This isn't the only place that it shows up. I see emotions as disharmony and dysfunction in the system all the time.
mhm,
But I see it in a really big capital letters billboard kind of way
mhm.
when I'm talking to clients who are struggling with their fertility.
Think about it, the conventional realm, I'm not gonna say is the only, but is the predominant means of medicine that we practice today.
Mhm,
And the conventional practices are really riding the coattails of the ancient, I say that with quotations, right? The ancient modalities or the alternative modalities that are readily available to people outside of the realm of insurance, right? Real
mhm,
medicine actually starts at the root. And conventional medicine is not actually designed, developed, or practiced in a way that we look at the root. And if you look at the emotions and the emotional capacity and the emotional awareness available in the conventional realm, it's non existent.
mhm,
We are not taught. We have trained the empathy out of most of our physicians. It just is what it is. That is a fact. Ask most physicians, right? They're not getting emotional awareness. They're not getting empathy based training. It's not something that exists in the conventional realm. And the beauty to the modalities that we provide support and practice are they look at emotions as part of the root cause. They look at thoughts as part of the root cause, beliefs, behavioral patterns as part of the root cause. Yet
mhm,
most of us are raised in a societal sphere where that's not spoken about until we're in our mid 20s. We're hitting a crisis point. We feel like shit. We've tried everything. And oh my God, I got to go to this alternative woo woo practitioner because it's my last resort. And that's when the conversation around emotions really starts to take place. If we're being true and transparent, therapy, I think, is in this growth phase in and of itself. But per my own experience with previous therapists, emotions were not even a conversation that was had in the privacy of my therapist's office on a couch as we walked in circles around the things that I was dealing with. To watch a woman come into a conversation and have the realization that, oh my God, what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling and what I believe and the relationships I'm participating in are actually having a direct impact on my physical health. It's like watching a deer in headlights.
yeah.
They absolutely don't know what to do with it. And oh my God, if I have to admit this to myself and to other people, my life might actually have to change.
Yes. And I have that deer in headlights response from my clients in the office. And then as we work with modalities that help them to unlock what they're
Yeah.
trying to bury and stuff down inside of their body, not only are they seeing improvements in the way that their cycle is showing up, how they're feeling, their energy level, but all of a sudden, there's like this aha moment. Oh, this was a part of my picture. And now I have to do something about it.
Mhm.
And because we are alchemical, right?
Yes.
So you can't make a cookie putting separate ingredients in separate containers on a counter. You have to
Mm-mm.
put it all together,
Mhm.
mix it all together with the energy and the ingredients in the bowl in order to get the dough to
Mhm.
create what you're trying to create. So our lives and our bodies are no different from that. I worked with a practitioner years ago who talked about the body being the movie projector of your life.
Yep.
And it's really true. You were talking about ancestral lineages and things of this nature. There are inherited patterns that come into the conversation, but we also have these really insidious cultural subtexts
Mhm.
also to consider and to look at and to wrestle with and really step into. So I posted a video the other day where I was talking about the fact that the fall season is the time of letting go. What
Mhm.
are you letting go? If you look at the trees outside the window, the leaves fall, the tree lets go of what it needs to.
She's constantly giving us an example to follow, and yet we ignore the example that's sitting right in front of us. We are of her. We come
Mhm.
from her and we will go back to her. And this separation between us and her is so silly. It's part of what's killing us collectively.
Yes. Absolutely.
It's so problematic. You are made of her. She is from the dust, she will return to the dust.
Mhm.
Right? And to think that our capacity to not let go or our capacity to hold on is greater than our capacity to let go. Hello, that's the reason why we are so sick.
Oh,
It is no
absolutely.
more complex than that.
Absolutely. And sitting in the fall season, which is the energy of letting go, I think this conversation is really timely because this is an invitation to evaluate what is working and what isn't working in your life. And if we're looking at this from like a fertility standpoint, for example, if there are challenges in your relationship dynamic, there will be challenges for fertility. I've seen it time and time again. And I know that this is a pain point and this is probably going to be a very tender topic for people who are listening. I respect that and I hold space for that because this is a big guns kind of topic that you may have to sit with, and what you uncover may feel really uncomfortable. It might feel really messy. You might not know what to do with it yet, and that's okay because being able to sit in an embodied place and really check in with what your body is telling you that you need. The body never lies. The ego mind lies to us a
Mm,
lot. That ego thinks it knows shit that it doesn't. Our body wisdom never lies to us. It's that little gut feeling that goes, I don't know if you should do this.
mhm.
And if you ignore that little voice, which I have plenty of past
Yeah.
experience with that. Every time I look back at my life as the old lady I am now, and
Mhm.
every single time I ignored that little voice, it didn't work out well for me. Every single time. If I thought my ego brain was superior to that little voice inside me that said, this might not be the popular decision, Adrian, but this isn't the aligned one for you. Let's make a different choice. And if I was like, shut up, body, you don't know what you're talking about because I can logic my way through why this is a great idea, it still has never worked out for me. And when we're in partnerships where we're trying to have a family
Mhm.
and there are little bells going off, going, I'm coming up against friction with my partner about this or about that, or this decision doesn't feel aligned for me, or we're fighting a lot about fill in the blank.
Mhm.
This doesn't feel right to me. Like women are intuitive beings, it
Mhm.
is our superpower. And if our little gut bells aren't on board, then there has to be a reason. And our body will protect us from
Mm,
whatever that reason is. I see it in fibroids, I see it in cysts, I see it in infertility challenges, I see it in so many ways. The body will mastitize emotion
mhm,
and ignoring emotions
mhm.
in some really profound ways.
Nothing about this too, like, the thing that keeps coming up for me as we're speaking is women are gonna feel gaslit, and nothing about this is gaslighting you and your personal experience, and telling the truth, telling your truth. Most of us don't know what our truth is. We haven't taken the time to sit with ourselves in order to understand what that truth actually looks like. We're living the truth of so many other people that we have no
Mhm.
idea what our actual authentic truth looks like.
Mm,
But if we take time to sit in our truth, the truth is most of us don't create space for emotional exploration. The truth is, most of us are terrified to tell ourselves the truth, right? The truth is, your body is always going to speak a language and tell a story that you're afraid to actually verbalize publicly. So when I find like somebody's body and obviously what they're telling me out of alignment, I'm going to believe their body first because the
mhm,
body does not lie. Physiological patterns do not lie. And 9 times out of 10, we don't have a dysfunction of overgrowth or heavy metals or parasites. We have an incongruence between what our body is experiencing in lived life in real time and what we're thinking, believing, behaving, etc. Those patterns, the way that they're showing up for us, because it's a protective mechanism.
mhm,
We had to utilize those things, our beliefs, our behaviors, our thought patterns, in order to keep us safe and situated in a situation in our formative years of life. And we've just carried those things into our adult occurrence and they're suffocating us.
mhm,
I think it would be helpful to give an example too of what this looks like. We could play this out of what it looks like for most people. Sitting in practice across from somebody that we have the privilege of supporting in our virtual office, right? And let's go through some questions. Hey, we've tried X, Y, and Z to support the physical body. Like I know you have X, Y, and Z that you utilize that's individually crafted for the person that you're supporting. They're not really providing us with the results that we would hope to get in the consistent application of these things. So, one of two things is happening here. Either we're not consistently applying and we're just not telling the truth about that, which isn't usually the case, or there's something deeper going on and we're terrified
mhm,
to look at it.
mhm,
Oh, okay. So if this isn't a case, which is what we usually tease out with our clients in practice, right? Then we get to start on this, right? Okay, so
mhm.
what's the truth that we're terrified to look at? Are you actually happy with your husband?
Yeah.
Think about how terrifying it is to say no. Oh my God, I'm married. We have a house together. We pay bills together. Like,
Mhm,
we haven't even spoken about this, but I'm really not happy. Okay, great. If you can tell yourself that truth, we are off to a really good start. So if we get a no, okay, I'm not happy in my marriage. Okay, are you happy? Are you sexually active? Yes. Are you satisfied in the bedroom? No. Holy shit, those two should never be incongruent, right? Ever. Ever. Okay.
Yes.
Hard stop. Your body's trying to tell you something. Your husband can go pout and complain and figure it out. We need to have an honest conversation with ourselves. And then we
Mhm,
have an honest conversation with our partner. Our partner's feelings, while they're important, they're also theirs to take care of,
mhm,
just like there are feelings to take care of. So you can be tender and loving and kind. And if you're not feeling safe and turned on, holy shit, hold the phone, put the brakes on. No, we do not proceed in pass go, right? Okay, so I'm not satisfied in my marriage, mentally, emotionally, physically. I'm not satisfied in the bedroom, but I'm still sexually active. Holy crap. Oh, and then I'm responsible for everything in the house on top of working. This is the story of so many women.
mhm. It is. It is, and when we don't feel safe,
Mhm,
if you think about it, our bodies are built to receive,
mhm.
okay?
Literally.
We have to literally give you permission to enter. If you don't feel safe, your body will lock things down. I
Yes.
see it with people who have tight pelvic floors, who experience vaginismus, who have there is an emotional barrier there, and the body goes, "Oh, I don't feel safe. I don't feel held. I can't let this happen." And in some cases, people try to force it to happen, or it just simply do not pass go. Like it
Yeah.
just can't happen at all.
Mhm.
Let's think about this. Our bodies, we have thousands of nerve endings. Women's bodies are built for pleasure. If you haven't checked out Sacred Sexuality with Kim Coffin, that episode that I did with her a few weeks back, definitely check that one out. We
Do
talk about
most
this a
women know
lot.
what do most women know what pleasure is, though? Because we're
No.
taught that it's dirty.
Yes. And that's where I was talking earlier about those insidious cultural
Mhm.
subtexts, because that is part of the problem, where it's supposed to be a lady in the street and a freak in the bed, right? I know I'm quoting Usher, but it's
Yeah.
really true.
Hey. Mhm.
There is this understanding in our culture that we can be hypersexualized, we can be objectified, and that's socially acceptable. And I'm using that in air quotes.
Mhm.
And yet, like, we're supposed to just instantly be turned on. We're supposed to get there as quickly as our male partners. Women's bodies are like diesel engines, folks.
Mhm.
We need time to warm up.
Mhm. And it starts outside of the bedroom. Like, it's not
Yes.
just, "Oh, I have sexy time," and it's scheduled. I mean, can you tell married couples, like, scheduling it in? Which I do think there is a time and a place for that. Spontaneity is also a great thing as well too, right? But foreplay happens outside of the bedroom, and
Yes.
foreplay isn't just physical. It's mental and it's emotional for a lot of us. And
Oh,
we are
yeah.
oftentimes met with partners that have no idea how to meet the mental and emotional needs of foreplay in and of itself. Men
Mhm.
were not set up for success either. Societally, historically, they were not set up for success. And if you have a partner that's willing to look at all of this and make changes, you probably have a winner on your hands. That doesn't mean that it's all going to work out in favorable ways on the backside of it, but nonetheless, you both will grow through this process,
Mhm.
right? But foreplay starts outside the bedroom.
Mhm. It does, absolutely. I have this conversation with couples all the time,
Mhm,
that play
mhm.
is part of foreplay, and I'm not just talking, like, when you get behind a closed door. Play involves finding things that bring you joy in your life,
Yes.
and so this comes back to emotions are a big part of this conversation. Feeling joy and zest for life helps you with your turn on.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you have to feel safe to
Mhm,
have turn on. You have to feel held emotionally and physically for turn on to happen.
mhm.
And like East Asian medicine has this understanding that heaven and earth come together to create humanity. That it's this balancing, this literally this alchemical experience between masculine energy and feminine energy that helps bring life into the world.
Yeah.
And we're in a culture right now where, just think about COVID and how many women had to give up so much, their jobs, their careers, the way they move, their independence, all of these kinds of things in order to support their families while they're home.
That's a whole
And
nother
then
podcast
it
episode.
isn't, it totally is, but I think
Mhm,
it's something that we can ground in current context, that this is just one of the ways that women are expected to step into this masculine energy role.
mhm,
We have to go, we have to do, we have to figure it out.
mhm.
All you have to do is look at TikTok and all of the freaking joke reels and TikTok videos and all of that stuff about my husband is incapable of doing this. I have to do all of this stuff. I have to. Jokes about it as a culture, but it's coming from a place of pain
Yeah,
inside of women's bodies, whether they consciously realize it or not.
mhm,
They are making jokes about being overburdened.
right.
They are making jokes about the fact that they are struggling to function in this
Mhm,
container, because remember what I said about the fact women are built to receive? We are supposed to stay in that feminine flow. It's
mhm,
part of how we get pregnant, for God's sake. But if we're staying in that masculine energy over and over again, and that is the space that we are expected to occupy, we can't get into that receiving place because our brains are so busy with the planning, executing, decision making, all of these types of things. And this is where, if we are able to have a partner who can step into that masculine energy space,
mhm.
now we're cooking with gas,
Right.
because we're now in an actual like masculine energy, feminine energy, yin yang dynamic and
Yeah.
partnership, where actual creation can happen because when women are forced to stay in this masculine energy space, this is why we have adrenal fatigue and so much burnout. We biochemically are not designed to stay in that energy all the time. We're just not.
Mhm. No, totally agree. And when it comes to providing your partner with the opportunity to step into his more masculine essence, because we all have feminine and we all have masculine, and ladies, we're really fine-tuned and well-trained to be masculine,
Mhm.
right? But
Mhm.
part of you claiming your power and stepping back into what is your feminine essence is sitting with yourself, learning how to hold the parts of yourself that need to be held and speaking your truth. And it
Mhm.
is so very masculine of us to look at a need and override it,
Yes,
and to look at a truth that needs to be told and silence it. And the more that we do those things, the more the body is going to display things that we're dissatisfied with.
absolutely.
And that dissatisfaction is completely displaced because the body is really doing us a huge service versus an in service or an injustice. She is attempting to get our attention before the engine blows up. And oftentimes, we need the engine to blow up in order to pay attention to her. And then we get frustrated with her because the engine blew up. But all along, she was sending smoke signals our
Yes.
direction that something was going on underneath the hood of the car.
And the hardest thing is that we're just not taught
Hmm.
that those smoke signals is our body's way of trying to communicate lovingly with us.
Hmm.
And we have to wait for something really catastrophic to happen before we address it, instead of dealing with it when the indicator light comes on.
Hmm. It is wildly uncomfortable to sit with yourself and go, how have I not met my own needs?
Mhm.
Where am I pushing entirely too hard? When have I said yes when I really mean no? How have I overcommitted myself? What am I really not happy with in my relationship? Why do I keep saying yes to it? Who in my life do I continue to allow in energetically that doesn't deserve access to me? And how do I kindly, with love, remove them? It's wildly uncomfortable to tell yourself the truth.
It is. And we also live in a culture where there's so much emphasis placed on disappearing from discomfort.
Yeah.
Just think about wine o'clock, and there's tons of memes and t-shirts and videos and all of these things about numbing out uncomfortable stuff and disappearing and escaping from difficult stuff.
Just to wrap in a world event that I know very little about. So I'm saying this with utmost respect. There are women located all over the world that do not have the freedom that we have here in this country to express our needs, go about getting support in those needs, and potentially leaving a situation where our needs are just not going to be met, regardless of what we do. There are women struggling to get their bodies respected, their voices respected, their brains respected. And I just look at how we're utilizing those freedoms in this country. And I'm like, why are we wasting so much time
Mhm.
and what we have available at our fingertips? Because there are women all over the world who would kill and are being killed to just utilize their voice in the capacity that we have the right to do so right now. First with ourselves and then with others. We are really sitting on the forefront of being able to change things if we know how to tap into what's available to us. So maybe the urgency is stop wasting the time
Mhm.
and the gift that's being given and start listening to the undercurrents and the under rumblings of what's going on internally so that the change that we want to see collectively can start to happen at an individual level.
And we change it from our little microcosm.
100%.
There's days where I feel totally overwhelmed by the fact that there are so many people who are suffering with physical symptoms and emotional things, and they're not being held, and they don't feel seen, and they struggle with this idea of feeling like they're enough,
Hmm.
and enough for their partner, enough for their life, enough in their job. And the toll that it takes on their body when they don't feel seen and they don't feel heard and they don't feel like their voice is valued. And there are some days where I just feel like the whole thing is gonna swallow me whole
Hmm.
because there are so many of us that are struggling with this. And yet I have friends
Mhm.
like you, like some of my close friends that I lay on the floor in my office and go,
Mhm.
"I just wanna save everyone."
100%.
And they remind me that it starts at home and it
Mhm.
starts in these microcosms and it starts with our relationships with our partners, our relationship with ourself.
Yes.
Maybe we feel like our partner is an immovable object. Okay,
Mhm.
great. Let's start the work inside of you. Put your hands on your heart when you wake up in the morning and ask, what do you need today? It could be
Mhm.
that simple.
That's just it. Most women don't have a conversation with themselves.
No, not at all, because as soon as their feet hit the floor in the morning, they've got kids screaming outside the door, they've somebody crawling on top of them asking for breakfast. They don't even have a chance to think.
Mhm.
They just start in motion from the
Mhm.
moment their feet hit the floor in the morning. And carving out even 10 or 15 minutes of allowing yourself to be still with your body. And for me, I like that physical touch of putting my hands over my heart and going, okay, girl, what do you need today?
Yeah.
Do you feel happy? Do you feel angry? What do you feel angry about? How can I help you today? And it's really amazing if you are quiet,
Mhm.
those answers will come.
Mhm.
And then you know how to take those steps forward into your day that day,
Mhm.
how to take that deep breath and go, okay, I know what I need to do. And sometimes we need to sit in that discomfort for a little while and go, this feels gross. I know that I need to do this, but I just don't feel like I have the strength for it today. The day will come where it will be there and you'll be able to
Yeah.
make the changes you need to make.
Decades of silencing, decades of stuffing, decades of suffocating, decades of dysfunction are not going to be resolved overnight,
Mhm.
right? And it requires us to take that first step and then that second step and then that third step and sit with the discomfort that comes from the truth that arises for and within us. It's a critical component to not eject when it gets uncomfortable.
And it's so tempting to eject.
Totally.
It's so tempting to eject, and there are industries built around it. Some states have legalized marijuana. The alcohol industry thrives even in economic downturns. Like, we try
Escapism.
to eject.
Escapism is a very real, very prevalent, very prominent, very supported thing in our society.
It is, and it's killing us
100%.
emotionally and physically.
And you have a wellness industry too. I think this is the last thing that I'll say, right? We have a wellness industry that is built off of a structure that sells you from one system into another system,
Mhm.
right? Not all of us are like this, side note, right? And many of us are coming to the realization that things need to change. Another side note. But it's all built off of if I can pull them out of the conventional medical realm, I can at least put them in a system that's better for them. But nonetheless, we're not actually encouraging anyone to set themselves free. I'm getting ready to go to a conference. The summit lineup, 6 o'clock this opens, 6:45 we have yoga. I'm like, what the fuck happened to? Sorry, am I allowed to say fuck?
Yeah.
Okay, what the fuck happened to our savory mornings?
Mhm.
What the fuck happened to sitting with our tea and looking out the window or listening to the birds chirp or just sitting there and sharing a moment of silence with the people in our home?
Mhm.
I don't know about you, but I'm at the age where I'm like, I don't want to put my fucking yoga pants on at 6:45 in the morning and sweat with people I don't know. Thanks, no thanks.
Mhm.
And what is wellness about that? Wellness isn't go, avoid stuff, suffocate. It's stop, sit, be still, observe, absorb, let go.
Reflect. Yeah. I have found this year has been really huge for me in terms of realizing the power, importance, and quite frankly, necessity
Yeah.
of stillness. And
Oh,
I did an episode at the end of last season about the power of pause, but like I really feel like that has just amplified tenfold for me this year, where I try very hard to mindfully, slowly integrate myself into my day every day. Sometimes it's only a half an hour because I'm a mom of
life.
three and life
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah.
But if I can take a full hour, I take it.
Mhm.
I give myself time to meditate. I give myself time to check in with my body and really listen to what she's saying to me. If there's anything profound that comes up, I write it down. I find that when I do things in that feminine flow, answers come. My body is smarter than my brain is, as hard as it is for my Aquarian ass to admit that. My body is smarter than my brain is. Yes, I'm
Mhm.
owning that, and that revelation has been very transformative for me, and when I spend that time in my microcosm,
Mhm.
it has a ripple effect. My husband engages with me differently. My children engage with me differently.
You're
I think I am. Like, I can't quantify this, right?
Mhm.
Because that's what the Western allopathic model wants is you to quantify all the things. But you know what?
I'm
I
bored
can
with it.
tell you, I
I'm
am
so
too,
bored with it.
frankly. And I have found that even my 15-year-old son, who can be very headstrong, and I'm in
Mhm.
the mom is dumb phase of
Yep.
my life right now, and he engages with me different. He communicates and speaks to me differently when I have these moments that I take for myself. And they're now getting very used to mom being like, hey, not yet. I'm meditating. Not yet. Like, even when I was living in a camper this summer, it was still, nope, mom's meditating. It's not time yet. And they got into the habit of literally holding that space for me because
Mhm.
I think whether they consciously or unconsciously realize it, I come out of that experience moving through the world in a very different way.
Mhm.
My practice flows differently. The people who find me and the way that my work flows differently, I feel like restored, renewed, generative, an actual creatrix
Mhm.
when I'm allowed and afforded that time for myself. And it's been massively transformative for me because I spent so much of my career and my life going, I need to do this thing. I need to go to that thing. I need to blah, 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 prioritizing out everybody ahead of myself. I had this massive crash in terms of my health after doing so much work for it
Mhm.
when I stopped prioritizing myself for the good of the people when everybody came home at the beginning of 2020 and I lost some of those restorative practices that I had held so dear. And now that I'm reclaiming all of that, reclaiming that energy, reclaiming that time, and giving myself time to check in with myself. Sure, the conversation between me, myself, and I, it makes me think of me, myself, and Irene, but that conversation with myself isn't always comfortable. It's
Mhm.
not always comfortable.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm like, "Ugh, I'm in an irritable mood. I don't even wanna be with myself today." But but then I start to dig into it and I go, "So why do I feel irritable today? What is making me feel irritable? Is this coming from inside my body or is this coming because of something that is happening situationally?" And you know what? That is a really powerful place to be
Mhm.
because when we're able to have these kinds of conversations with ourselves, we can really uncover and unpack a big part of our health picture,
Mhm.
our reproductive success, our period cramps. Like, I had a client that I talked to the other day who talked so much about this whole to be a woman, to be successful, keeping up appearances in a corporate experience.
Mhm.
And then we went on to talk about loose stools
Gee.
because she's in such a stressful situation right now. She's, like, convinced that it has something to do with her diet.
We need to make it really clear. Ladies, you will not be capable of restoring and or experiencing optimal health if you continue to treat stress as your mistress while you cheat on yourself. So whatever the stressors are, and I'm sure I can hear it now, that life happens and I have yeah, we all have shit to do. I totally understand. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I have 3 dogs, I run a practice, I have a
Mhm,
small team. I understand I have expectations imposed upon me daily.
mhm,
And I love me more than I love any of that. And the second half of this year, Adrian, you've gotten to watch me walk into this, right?
mhm,
Serve me up several pieces of humble pie, and you're going to sit here and integrate everything that you experienced last year. But the second half of this year has been the I love me. Yes, I love you, but I love me more, essentially. It's the David and Goliath aspect or chapter of many of our lives where we wrestle with some of the biggest things that we were taught, told, and set up to believe that actually just aren't all that true.
Yeah. Coming face to face with those things that aren't true in the way that we held reverence for them before is difficult.
Mhm.
And you're going to experience a lot of emotions around it. There's no way around that.
I say
And
good.
it is, though, it's so good because you physically feel lighter. Like, I think about this concept.
100%.
I think about this concept, like, if you haven't read Mama Gina's book, Pussy: A Reclamation,
Mhm.
I would highly recommend it. There's
Are you
a
going with swamping?
yes,
Mhm.
it's so good. Swamping, her concept of swamping is allowing yourself the space to feel whatever is coming up for you. If you're
Mhm.
angry, punch a pillow. If you want to cry the ugliest cry you've ever had, just let it out. Give yourself
Mhm.
a time window that you're going
Mhm.
to allow yourself to wallow in whatever
Mhm.
it is. Then your time is up and
Mhm.
you're gonna put on music and something that makes you feel like a sassy rock star,
Mhm.
whatever that is. You're gonna blast whatever music makes you feel like a badass, and you're gonna
Mhm.
go take on your day.
Mhm.
And that flips you into that turn on effect that I was talking
Mhm.
about earlier. It is generative. It's part of our fabric that helps
Mhm.
us be successful as women and is denied so much of the time. Just think about that feeling that you get when you put on an outfit that makes you feel
Mhm.
absolutely radiant and you look at yourself in the mirror and you see that look that crosses your face. I look like a goddess
You're
today.
feeling yourself. Mhm.
Yeah. You don't even need anybody else to compliment on your outfit because you just know in the fabric of your body that you look amazing that day. And it doesn't matter if anybody else recognizes it or not. And if
Mhm.
they do, you feel even better. But if
Yep.
they don't, you don't even care. And there's swagger in your step, there's energy in your life, there's pep in everything that you do.
Mhm.
So that is that energy that you get from acknowledging this truth. You
Mhm.
have to sometimes go through the muck and mire first, but things come into right relationship in your body and in your life when you can get into that high vibrational aligned place.
Yep. And that comes from sitting with, reflecting on, and identifying your truth. And until you do those things, there is no prescription for that. It has to be self guided, directed, and it has to be self motivated. Right. So if you really want to see change, those are three things that are free nonetheless that you're going to have to do. Have to. I don't put have to with a lot of things. That is a have to,
Mhm.
right? In order to make sustainable, impactful, and long term change.
Agreed. Period.
End of sentence.
I say mic drop. I can't even follow up after that because it's true. And so those are the parting thoughts that we're going to leave you all with today is sitting with that truth.
What is your
Carving
body trying to tell you? Yeah. And what are you refusing the right to hear versus accepting openly? Like, what is your body trying to tell you?
and giving yourself space to really sit with it.
You don't have to like what she's saying. You just have to create space to hear it.
Mhm.
You guys will eventually work it out to where it works for both of you. Please trust. And are you giving her space to safely speak? Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on today.
So fun. We can do a few of these. We
We
will. The podcast is coming back. So we're going to have lots to talk about in the future.
I love
And
it.
there are a few people that I can actually riff with authentically in a way that expresses things that we're seeing consistently in practice. And these are tough conversations to have with your client. You got to love people like you love yourself, right? And if I love myself enough to be like, hey, girl, we need to talk about this, and it's going to be tough to talk about, I'm going to love you just as hard. And you don't have to like what's coming out of my mouth, and you don't have to respond to it immediately. Same with you,
Mhm.
right? And it's always going to be in your best interest. Yeah.
Absolutely. Everything done from the heart
Mhm.
is always in your best interest.
Yes. Yep. And you deserve to be happy. Hello. You don't get a redo on this. This isn't a dress rehearsal. Let's go.
Absolutely.
On that note, thanks for having me.
How can people find you, Taylor?
At Tailored Wellbeing on Instagram. That is the most active place that you will find me. So I'm just going to leave it there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Taylor. As always, it was such a pleasure talking with you, and I can't wait till we can do this again.
I was going to say I look forward to many conversations in the future. So thank you.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at MoonEssenceMe on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.